Let's get a word from Rupert Lowe, the MP, independent MP, leader of Restore Britain. Always good to have you on, Rupert. I was alluding there to the front bench, never having run anything in their life. You have a fairly glowing CV in running lots of things, owning businesses, building them up from nothing, employing people. You've made a few quid along the way as well. So you're pretty well qualified in that arena. Does it, just on that specific point, does it strike you as a little bit odd when you look at the current front bench that, as far as I can work out, I'm not being mischievous here, I don't think I've made this up, I don't think any of them have ever run a bath?
Well, I think, Ian, the collective knowledge of the front bench, or business knowledge of the front bench, could be written on the back of a postage stamp. Most of them have clambered their way up the greasy public sector pole, and as a result of that, they're completely out of touch with the real world. And they're completely out of touch with the effects of the various sort of lunacy that they inflict on the private sector. I thought Michael Keir was very sensible in what he said. He's absolutely right. And I think the key sort of statement I like here is Ronald Reagan's statement when he speaks about socialism. And what he said was, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And when it stops moving, subsidize it. That's what he said, and I think that says it all very aptly. And I mean, what's happening here is you've got a war going on between the public sector and the private sector. And whereas the public sector is supposed to serve the private sector, what's happened is the public sector has become the enemy of the private sector. And I see this, and I sit on the Public Accounts Committee. The amounts of waste and incompetence which are evident throughout all organs of the state are just frightening. And as a result of that, they have to tax people more, or tax all of us more, which is effectively damaging the interests of businesses, and in particular here, the hospitality industry. And what they're now trying to do is then centrally plan some form of subsidized employment for people who they've forced out of work because the private sector can't employ them. But they just can't help inserting themselves into the chain. And it's exactly what happened under communism, Ian, and I'm afraid the script will end in the same way if we allow it to go on. So that's why we've got some common sense, hopefully emanating from Restore Britain, and I urge everybody to join as quickly as possible. And then with a mass movement, we can defeat this cancer which is killing Britain.
And of course, it's, you know, I always thought it wasn't that hard to work this bit out, but it clearly eludes the collective brains and thinking of the current government. But, you know, if you want to help Britain, if you want to get Britain back on its feet, by having huge swathes of regulation, firstly, is clearly not a good thing. Having taxation systems, whether it's business rates, you know, local taxation, whatever it happens to be, the national insurance hike, the minimum wage problem, all of those things, you know, my 11-year-old could work out that everything I've just listed there, is that going to help business or is it going to curtail business? And the answer is the latter every day.
Yes, I mean, look, the headwinds that businesses are now facing in is so huge that I can tell you for a fact, I was talking to some colleagues this morning, people are leaving the country in droves. They're not going to stay here. They are not going to stay here and fund this ridiculous sort of statism, this collectivism which is growing. And I'm afraid it's just going to get worse and worse if we allow it to continue. So people have got to, as I've always said, start standing up to this, start fighting it. And what we've got to do is see a sort of Margaret Thatcher-like empowerment of the private sector, which effectively gets directed investment from the private sector into long-term projects, into long-term employment, and it actually then drives sustainable growth. What happens with government initiatives, they're like fads. They use taxpayers' money, they misdirect it. It basically, very briefly, has an effect. It fizzles out, and then they move on to the next thing, because I think the attention span of Westminster is about half a day. And the media circus moves on, and everybody forgets about what's been said.
Yeah.
And actually what you do need is exactly what Rachel Reeves is killing, which is the family farms, the family businesses, the backbone of Britain, the people who hold our communities together, and the people who ultimately invest long term because they believe in the country. But people don't believe in the country now. So what we're seeing is huge numbers of rainmakers leaving the country, taking their brain power, taking their money, and ultimately, I'm afraid, the rest of the country will be the loser, because the people who leave first are the most able. They can see what's happening, and they're going to help other countries to generate wealth. We're already seeing it. We're seeing it in countries like Greece, in countries like Dubai, in countries like Italy. Milan is benefiting from the huge British brain drain.
Yeah.
And in today's digital world, you don't have to live in this country. So governments should be making it attractive for people to live here. They should be encouraging brain power to come and contribute. And that is not done by overtaxing people to fund a sort of centrally planned circus which wastes people's money and oppresses them.
Yeah.
So no, we're in a bad shape. And if you look at what's happened, as you said earlier, to Joey Barton and a number of other people like Lucy Connolly for social media posts, I mean, at the end of the day, we're having our freedoms taken away. We're being taxed into oblivion. We're being monitored on facial CCTV. And now they're trying to force digital ID on us. I mean, where's all this going, Ian?
Yeah.
Is it a sort of communist style Politburo run by Keir Starmer?
I mean, if it's not, it bloody well looks like one, doesn't it? Let's say that much.
Yeah.
Just a final point, Rupert, unconnected to this. I noticed you were posting this morning and talking about your own independent rape gang inquiry, which you have set up. You've now formally invited Jess Phillips, who's I think still the Women and Safeguarding Minister, to the inquiry, to the hearings in February. You say we hope she will take the time to give evidence. Have you heard back from Jess Phillips on this yet?
Well, you probably know that I invited her to participate when I spoke in Parliament, and she said she would come back to me. She hasn't done that. So we are, as you say, we're setting out our 2 weeks of hearings, which are going to happen from the beginning for the first 2 weeks of February. We've got our KC who's going to do it and then finish a very hard-hitting report, because what we found is pretty vile. And we thought the least we could do is invite those people who've promised us a statutory inquiry, at least that they can then come and participate in our private inquiry, which is funded with a very generous £600,000 donated by 20,000 people who are concerned about what's happening.
Yeah.
So we thought we would be doing less than our duty not to invite them. I don't expect them to come. They have shown very little intellectual appetite in participating in what we're doing. I suspect that their statutory inquiry, which was announced, I think it was 4 or 5 months ago now, and as far as I'm aware, no progress has been made. I think that was announced to try and draw the teeth of our inquiry, and I got a lot of pressure at the time for us to abandon ours and leave it to the state. Well, we're not going to do that, because the state has singularly failed to address this issue, which has been going on for 25 years, and more concerningly, is still going on today.
Yeah.
So, and despite what Khan says, it's happening in London everywhere. So I think we have a major problem in this country when you have this mass rape of white working class girls going on systemically by largely Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. And then you have our citizens being sent to prison for social media posts. I mean, doesn't that just make a mockery of the whole thing?
Yeah, and social media posts often pointing out the very thing you've just referenced. So just to compound the grim irony of the whole thing. Rupert, great to have you on as ever. Very common sense words from Rupert Lowe, the independent MP. He's leader of Restore Britain. Thoughts on what he had to say on both of those issues as well.